Okay, we finished Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and here's the big question. Did anybody figure out which planet is connected to Voyage of the Dawn Treader? Did you? Remember Lion Witch in the Wardrobe? It was Jove or Jupiter, the king, when winters passed, right from the poem. And Prince Caspian is about Mars, the god of war, because there's a lot of battle, but also there was a thing called Mars Sylvanus in really old mythology, where Mars also had to do with trees, and there were all those trees in Prince Caspian. Okay, if you haven't figured it out for Voyage of the Dawn Treader yet, let me first read you the one little thing that they changed very, very much. And then I'll tell you which planet it was. When they come out of the dark island, remember that scary black mist that they rode into? Do you remember that? Lucy, there's a big bird, the albatross, that flies around, and then as it flies out, she was the only one who heard it whisper to her, "Courage, dear heart," said the voice, and she felt sure it was Aslan's, and with the voice, a delicious smell breathed in her face. Now, this is where the difference is. This is how Lewis first wrote it. In a few moments, the darkness turned into a grayness ahead, and then, almost before they dared to begin hoping, they had shot out into the sunlight and were in the warm blue world again. And all at once, everybody realized that there was nothing to be afraid of and never had been. They blinked their eyes and looked about them. The brightness of the ship herself astonished them. Okay? That's how he first wrote it. But then he went back and he made a change. So the bird says, "Courage, dear heart," and she felt sure it was Aslan's, and with her voice a delicious smell breathed in her face. In a few moments, the darkness turned into a grayness ahead, and then almost before they dared to begin hoping, they had shot out into the sunlight and were in the warm blue world again. And this one after that says, "And all at once, everybody realized there was nothing to be afraid of and never had been." That one line, this is how he changed it. "And just as there are moments when simply to lie in bed and see the daylight pouring through your window, and to hear the cheerful voice of an early postman or milkman down below, and to realize that it was only a dream, it wasn't real, is so heavenly that is very nearly worth having the nightmare in order to have the joy of waking. So they all felt when they came out of the dark." And then it's back to the brightness of the ship herself astonished them. So he went back in, and the first way he wrote it, it sounded like nothing had really happened. There was nothing to be afraid of, and there never had been. But they were afraid when they were in there. And so he went back in and made it like there are times when we're afraid, sometimes in nightmares or bad dreams. And then we wake up and we realize that we didn't need to be. But the joy of finding that is so good. And he didn't want to diminish the times that we really are afraid, even if it's not something that's real. So he made that change. But then the people who did these books said, "Oh no, we're going to just go back to the original because that's how it should be." But he's the one who had made the change. All right. So that was the very scariest part of the journey. It was the bad. That was the enemy more than anything else. No, those slave traders, those were bad enemies too. But this dark island was the most evil, wicked thing that they felt and experienced inside. And what's the opposite of that? They came out into the daylight. Voyage of the Dawn Treader is connected to the sun, or soul. S-O-L would have been the name for it. And think about all the ways that happens. Let's see. Remember we saw the picture where Caspian even had a sun sewn into his tunic? Now, it doesn't say that in the book. It doesn't say his tunic had a sun on it. So I don't know if Lewis maybe told Pauline Baynes to put it on there, or if she just read the book and decided this is what should be on there. But I think that's very interesting. They're always sailing east toward the end of the world. Who knows what happens in the east? That's where the sun rises, right? The dark island is the worst spot. On Death Island, do you remember what happened to the man who had jumped into the water and then the toe of Edmund's boot? it turns into gold. Gold is associated with the sun. And in fact, Lewis has another book where someone calls gold sun's blood. So the use of gold there is really interesting. At the end, the last few chapters, remember when they're sailing and it's so bright that they feel healthier and more strong than they ever have. And they taste the water and they describe it as drinkable light. Yes, indeed. Lucy looks along a beam of light when they're leaving the dark island. Let's see, were there any things else? Those are the big ones. But if you read through it again, next time you read through it, watch for all of the mentions of things that are about gold or sun or the east. Now, there's also things in there about night and darkness, but the sun is the idea that seems to be carrying you through from beginning to end. And let me read you what Lewis said about sun in, remember, he has this book of poems that he wrote in 1935. So this is long before he wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. All right. This is what he says about sun or soul, S-O-L. Far beyond Venus, the heavens' highway hums and trembles, drums and dindles, to the driven thunder of soul's chariot, whose sword of light hurts and humbles, beheld only of eagle's eye. When his arrow glances through mortal mind, mists are parted, and mild as morning the mellow wisdom breathes o'er the breast, broadening eastward, clear and cloudless. In a closed garden, unbound her burden, his beams foster soul in secret, where the soil puts forth paradisal palms and pure fountains, turn and retemper, touching coolly the uncomely common to cordial gold, whose ore also, in earth's matrix, is print and pressure of his proud signet on the wax of the world. He is the worshipped male, the earth's husband, all beholding, arch chemic eye. So there's Soul's Chariot, which kind of the voyage of the Dawn Treader is the chariot that's heading out to the sun, right? On heaven's highway. That's how it's described, as the heaven's highway hums and trembles as Soul's Chariot is on it. He's got a sword of light. Talks about the eagle's eye is the only thing that can look, beheld only of eagle's eye. They're the only things that can look into the sun. But remember, at the end of the book, they're able to look at the sun, which they never could do before, and you should never do. It's very bad for your eyes. The mists are parted, like when they came out of the dark island and the mists parted around them. Broadening eastward, clear and cloudless. As they go further and further eastward, it's just the sun all the time. No clouds, always clear out. There was another, this thing about in this garden where the uncomely common to cordial gold. So they touch something, touch it coolly, the uncomely common turns to cordial gold. Death Island, right? When things turn into gold. There was one other thing in here. In a closed garden, his beams foster soul in secret. That was what Lucy looked along, a beam of light. That's exactly how he described it. And that was when inside she started feeling safe and seen and cared for again. So the theory is, and I think it's a very good theory, that Voyage of the Dawn Treader is influenced by the sun, which in the medieval world was considered to be a planet. And each planet influenced people differently. There was sort of not a god, but a deity or a power that represented each planet. I'm not saying this is true. I'm just saying this is what they believed. And that was the one that was associated with the sun. So we've done 3 books. We're going to do Silver Chair next. And while we read it, listen and see if you can figure out which planet it is. Okay? All right. Silver Chair is up next.